Well, we've all experienced it. Adults repeating instructions to kids over and over without results.
Today is all about following through on our words on the Sticky Parenting Podcast.
A podcast on creating parenting strategies that stick
Through the stages.
Well, welcome back to the Sticky Parenting Podcast. We're so glad that you're tuning in. My name is Matt.
And my name is Nat.
And we're grateful to be able to spend this time with you on whatever platform you're viewing this. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to this podcast. If you're on Apple Podcasts, if you're on Spotify, YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Like it, share it. Maybe you know some people who could benefit from the content that we share. And as always, we aim to talk to people who are parents of a toddler all the way through parents of teenagers. So it's not just one specific group of people.
Right.
So I'm excited about today's content, but I think you are even more excited.
I'm really excited. I think this subject is easy to recognize.
Sure.
I think we see it everywhere. But I think some of the strategies that we talk about are just so doable and life-giving, provide some freedom.
Yeah. Freedom.
Makes life easier.
Yeah.
I like stuff like that.
That's so great. As we were getting ready for this, I shared a story with Nat that I've told to students here at EPAG. Eden Prairie Assembly of God is where we serve. And it's usually in the context of obedience, first-time obedience. But it's such a great story. It involves ball pits.
Oh,
Remember the days of the ball pit? Now that we've gone through COVID-19, we just laugh at the idea of a ball pit. It's
probably how it started, in a ball pit.
It probably started a ball pit. At this point in my life, of course, I was a kid, and McDonald's had ball pits, Burger King, Hardee's. You remember Hardee's?
IKEA did.
Okay. I don't know, but at the point I knew about IKEA, it would have been weird for me to go into the ball pit. So anyway, on this particular time, I asked if I could go in the ball pit, and my parents probably told me, okay, but when it's time to go, it's time to go.
Yeah.
And I dove in, and it was the only child's paradise because there were no other kids in there. So I was all by myself doing the dolphin, just diving in, going down, getting some of those really terrible diseases and the lowest levels of
the Band-Aids.
Of the whole thing. Anyway, I heard the door open, and I heard my mom's voice say, "Matt, it's time to come out." And I maybe poked my head up, and then I went down under. I thought, I'm not done yet. Nope. And the door closed, and I thought, I won. I won. I will get out when I want to get out. And the door opened again, and I think it was my dad. I don't totally remember, but arms kind of dug down into the balls and pulled me out.
Good.
And the kicker on this one is I did not go back to ball pits for a long time. I wasn't allowed to go in, like as a consequence.
Yeah.
And so I knew that I needed to get out when I was told to get out.
Good.
And then I knew what the consequence would be. Yep. And then my parents followed through. And gosh, I was probably 17 by the time I even was allowed to go back in. And at that point, it would have been weird.
You didn't want to go to IKEA and take your chances.
Exactly.
So you didn't win.
No, I didn't win. And kids really shouldn't when it comes to this sort of thing,
we
right?
could end it there.
We could end it there.
Podcast done.
So this is important, and it's probably relatable to every parent out there, because there's a million moments all day long that are opportunities for this, especially if you've unintentionally kind of trained your child that they don't have to respond to your words.
Right.
We've made a little list here on some of the just frustrations and side effects that can happen when we don't follow through on our words. And the first is yelling. That can happen.
Right. Yep. Well, and especially if we've repeated the same thing over and over, get out of the ball pit, get out of the ball pit, and nothing's working. And
Let's
then
try
sometimes,
it at a higher decibel.
And then finally we're yelling, get out of the ball pit. And that's what it takes to finally get them out. And we've said it 50 times at that point.
You just said it, repeating words over and over again, over-explaining the whys. Do you want to kind of break that one down?
Yeah, it's just maybe it's conveying our emotions or trying to speak to their emotions, but just over-explaining why we need to do something, why they need to listen. And I think that's just not the time to use so many words.
Sure. Fewer words in a lot of cases. Yep. Oh, your favorite, counting.
I have a little twitch when it comes to counting. But I mean, I don't know if parents, you can relate to this. My first child, I mean, that's like the test kid. You don't know what you're doing.
Petri dish.
Golly. And so I've done so many of these, but the counting, that gets to me.
Sure.
The time to get out of the ball pit. I'm going to count to 3.
Right. You have one chance to disobey. You have two chances to disobey, but you better obey on the third. And I've even heard counting go beyond 3, too.
Yes.
Words only, not enough action. And at that point, kids just start to get numb to your words. And that increases, on the parent side, frustration, exhaustion, talking over and over again. Oh, man, it's tough.
Yes, it is.
Kids acting like they didn't hear the words or deliberately ignoring them. They don't expect any consequences.
So why do it?
Right. And then words without follow through can really create some disrespect towards parents that subliminally is rewarded,
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Right. Yep. So we want to foster trust. We want kids to see you, especially if you're the parent, or maybe you're a leader, a teacher listening to this or whatever. They're looking to you as their guide. And we bring in the aspect of Jesus following. You're discipling your child, right? You're teaching them the way they should go, so when they're old, they won't stray from it. And that's important for them to view you as someone that they can trust, and your words as something that has weight for their lives. So,
like in your example, you thought you were going to win. And you thought you were in charge. But if the kids are deciding when to listen and when to act, then they think that they're the ones in charge, and we don't want that, because they're not adults. They're little ones, sometimes really little ones. We want to be their guide.
And ultimately, if you are Jesus followers and you're listening to this, down the road, Jesus doesn't count to 3 with us,
He
right?
doesn't, no.
Jesus doesn't reward disobedience, and that, right? So we want them to be able to hear the voice of Jesus when they're in their 20s, when they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and asking them to do something, and they'll do it now.
Come, follow me.
Yep. Oh, that's
now,
good.
Right? Get out of the boat, sell your land, sell your possessions.
So there are other approaches that we want to we're kind of calling them course corrections, because for all of us, I think everybody would admit they can get better at this. Yep. And so some of the ideas that we are aiming for put you as the parent, you as the adult, in a position where you can use fewer words and there's more action involved, consistency.
Yep. Doing it. Over and over again. And if I could just put a little personal touch on this, so many of these I did myself.
Okay.
I was just repeating and getting frustrated, and my words, my tone was elevated, and so these course corrections I've personally done myself, and they've brought a lot of freedom. A lot of peace in my life. And so I encourage parents to give it a try. Even ministry leaders. These are great tips.
It is possible. You're living proof. Yep. So shall we dive in?
Let's do it.
Okay. Course correction number 1, make the expectation clear, and we should probably throw in make the consequence clear as well.
Yep.
So when they don't come right away, you don't have to repeat yourself. The expectation is already known, and then you get to just follow through.
You do
on it.
Yes, and the beauty about this is that you get to decide what that expectation is, and we're saying here that in this course correction number 1 is to kind of give them a heads up, especially when you see the same thing happening over and over again. Okay, Johnny, whenever I tell you to come, this is I want you to come. And if you don't come at this point, then
what's the consequence?
Right? Yep. And then you do it again and again and again, and that's the consistency.
Tough.
It's tough. However, it builds trust. It builds trust between your child and you, that you are going to follow through on what you said that you were going to do, and that is big.
That's a big deal. That actually leads into our second course correction number 2. Say it once and then follow through on the action, the correction, the consequence. Over time, consistently, you've taught your child they can depend on your words, both in the positive. If you say there will be a reward, there's a reward, and then also in terms of consequences, they don't get numb to your words.
Right. So an example of that, and this may sound silly, but I've heard it.
I love this.
I mean, I've heard things like this so many times. Like if you say, if you don't feed the dog, we're going to give the dog away.
Right. Have you said that before?
No, I want to give the dog away too badly. I think I probably would give the dog away.
There is no if then. You just want to give the dog away. Okay, gotcha.
So if you're not prepared to give the dog away, don't say it. Right? So we're going to, so be prepared to do what you're actually going to say.
And make sure that the consequence fits the crime, that you're not engaging in capital punishment because the dog wasn't fed that particular morning, right? I think that's worth saying, but following through on that action and that correction, and training your child that you're not going to say it 6 times.
Yeah.
You're going to say it once.
Yeah, and I think this helps us not to make like empty threats. You know, I've heard many times. I'm sure I've done it. If you don't come, we're going to leave. We're going to leave you.
Right.
Well, we wouldn't, right? As tempting as that might be.
I think it did happen once at EBAG years ago. But anyway.
Yeah, and that again, that helps kids to trust that your words are true, and it helps them to respect you and your words as well, and puts you again as their guide.
Right. Course correction number 3, plan ahead. If you know, and you've kind of alluded to this, some of the things that you've said, if you know there's something that's consistently a battle, if you know that there's a particular point of disobedience that happens over and over again with your child, just pause and think about how you're going to handle that the next time it happens.
Yep. So an example of that, a personal experience, when my daughter was young, around 4, when she would go to bed, she'd go to bed and then she would just throw just really big tantrums and big fusses. And it consistently happened every night. And so the thing that really helped is I made a plan of what I was going to do, because it was going to happen the next night. It was not an if, it was a when.
Right.
And my emotions would take over at night because it was late.
Late. Exactly.
It was so hard.
There's a reason why everybody hates bedtime.
Amen.
It's just the perfect storm.
So I wrote down my plan of what I was going to do. when this happened. I even told my husband too, so that we'd be on the same page.
Yes.
What my
good.
plan was is I wasn't going to go in the room. And because that's what she wanted to see me. And so by telling him, by writing it down, it kept me accountable. And my goodness, that thing was solved in about 3 days. And I just think that could have gone on for months, years. But I had a plan. I stuck with it. I had some accountability, and it brought a lot of freedom and peace.
Yeah, getting the other spouse involved oftentimes can be that built-in accountability.
Yep, for sure.
Course correction number 4, be intentional with those transition times. We know, especially speaking from the ministry experience that I've had, kids who are on the autism spectrum, and then even kids just in general, have a tough time with those moments of transition. This has ended. Now we're doing this instead. It's time to go would fall under this. That ball pit example would kind of fall under this moment where it was a transition. Time to get out of the ball pit. Now we're going to go do something else.
Yep.
And just helping students, giving them a heads up in advance. I like there's a particular family at our church. They understand that transitions are tough, and so when they come pick up their child, they say, "I'm going to go pick up another child, and then I'm going to come back, and then it's time to go." So they're giving their child just a little heads up on what's coming, so that they can wrap up that thing that they're doing, finish the game that they're playing, but they never have trouble once they come back. So they're just preparing their child for the transition. And we know, even working with kids on the autism spectrum, we've even used story cards that are literally give visuals for kids of what happens when, and we point to this and say we're about to do this, and we're about to go here, and this is what's next.
Unexpected, it turns it to be expected.
And it makes those transitions less jarring, less halting for the child, for good. Sure. And then the last one we wanted to share, course correction number 5, give choices.
Yes, I've used this options in my class a lot.
Yeah.
So an example of this would be, let's say it's time to transition from like some playtime to craft time.
Sure.
And let's say that the student didn't want to do it. A good thing to say there is to give them a choice, and one of those choices is to do craft time. So whatever you want them to do, that's choice number one. Yeah. Choice number 2 would be a correction or a consequence. So in my classroom, it's a timeout. But it's still a choice. Yep. It's you can choose to sit at craft time, or you can choose to spend some time in this chair. And I tell you what, it becomes an easy choice.
I would think
I would choose crafts
for sure all day long.
Yep, yeah. But what this does is it gives them a little bit of power over their, maybe power isn't the right word, but it gives control. It gives them a little bit of control, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing, especially for kids that just have some just natural leadership qualities in them. Maybe kids that you think, wow, they could be in 2 grades ahead of what they are in, and they would just like some more responsibility, some more control. That's a good strategy to use.
Right. I think that's good. So to just kind of recap, we have 5 suggestions on course corrections that you may want to consider: making expectations clear, saying it once and then following through on the action or correction, planning ahead, being intentional with those transition moments, and giving choices. And maybe not all of those work for your particular situation, but maybe one is something that you want to try, implement, and try it for a while consistently, as we say each time.
And it's ridiculously rewarding as you do this consistently. And it gets easier because it's less work, right? You're not having to go through the same battles. And if you are, you already have a plan for them.
Yeah.
And to see your kids as they go through their stages, to see those wins. Oh, it's time to go. And you see them drop what they're doing and come right away. It's crazy awesome.
Feels good.
Yep.
And of course, this concept, really the spirit behind this for adults, for parents, I think is rooted in the scriptures, even the Jewish scriptures. You get into the Old Testament and Deuteronomy 23:23. They're talking about vows. Make sure you do what you promised to do. With your own mouth, you made the promise to the Lord your God. No one forced you to do it. And of course, this is vows to God that they're talking to. But even in the New Testament, Jesus alludes to it. Do you want to read Matthew 5:37?
Do we have it?
Yeah.
Okay, Here we go. All you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything more than this comes from the evil one.
Yeah. So just the general concept of letting your yes be yes, letting your no be no, and not getting too deep into the weeds or getting into a situation where your words don't have weight or meaning for your child. So we hope that this is helpful. We hope that it inspires you, maybe encourages you. Maybe you're already doing some of these things, or you're experiencing first-time obedience with your child. Great job. And if you're not, man, consider some of these things to implement into your parenting, implement into your teaching, and I think you'll be glad you did. For sure. Okay. So thanks for spending time with us. Again, feel free to subscribe at the conclusion of this episode so that you get updates, notifications when our next podcast drops. We want to make sure you don't miss out. And in the meantime, hang in there, parents. We are for you, and we hope that you have a great week.